Hey guys, so I wanted to make this video, I want to say real quick, but it could take a while, so we'll see how long this turns out to be. So, I'm probably going to call this something like I went to a zoo and why I hated it or something. And so first off, I want to say, I don't support zoos. I haven't supported zoos in a long time, just because, I know too much about what they do, and the way the animals are treated and everything. So basically, the reason why I went is because it was my mom's birthday, and so she wanted to go to the zoo, or my brother suggested it, and she wanted to go. And it was one of those things where it was like, okay, well, it's a really good experience for Jinx, who, if you don't know, is my service dog, and he's still kind of learning. He's officially a service dog, but he's, he needs to experience as many things as possible, especially while he's young. So I was like, it's good for him, and I kind of want to go. And basically, it was like, they just had to pay for parking, which would be the same regardless of if I went or not, because we were all in the same car. So it was like, okay, I'm not actually, not really putting money towards them, which my mom's all like, oh, they're all about conservation and stuff, which is like, yeah, that's great, but, there are better ways to go about that, I think. I think there are better ways than keeping animals in zoos, but, so, anyway, I'm gonna go on to some of the things I really didn't like about the zoo, and just, I guess, in general, why I don't like zoos. I haven't been to a zoo in, like, God, I don't remember the last time I went to a zoo. I was probably like 5. Anyway. So basically what happened, we went in, saw everything, started seeing things, like walked around a little bit, and then we went into the elephant house. And so basically they have an indoor and an outdoor. And the indoor was like tiny, like an elephant could probably barely turn around in there, which was like a little bit, I hope that's not the only place that elephants have, which thankfully it wasn't, but, just the fact that that's so tiny and they probably put them in there at times. Well, I mean, obviously they put them in there at times, but I don't know if they, like, locked them in there at times, which if they do, that's horrible, because the elephants could barely move in there, I'm sure. The elephants weren't in there at the time because they were cleaning, but, just based on the size of an elephant versus the size of that little area, I was like, yeah, so that was the first thing I was like, that's a bit weird. Or actually, there was another thing where there were 2 American bison, or buffalo, or whatever you want to call them. So there were 2 of them, and I mean, they're not as big as I thought they were. Maybe these were just small ones, or they were females or something, I don't know. Anyway, they were about the size of a little bit, anyway, they were not too big, but like, basically the area they were in was like, so the donkeys are out in a 100 by 100 foot little like pasture, and this, I think, was smaller than that. And they had like this little crappy thing. They basically had 4 sticks and a roof. Not even really a good roof, like their water could leak through that and whatever. So it was like this tiny little pasture, if you want to call it that. It's all dirt too. And then a little like roof, and that's about it. And it's like, I don't know if bison run a lot or anything. I mean, in the wild they do, but, maybe in captivity they don't, maybe because they can't. But it's like, just the fact that, like, they couldn't, even if they wanted to, rubs me the wrong way. Because it's like, they're wild animals. Like, don't keep them in a pasture that I wouldn't even keep, like, I wouldn't keep a normal animal in. Like, I wouldn't keep I wouldn't keep a horse in a pasture that size, so why would you keep wild animals in there? Anyway. Went into small mammal house. First thing we see is, basically it's like the giant fish tanks, I guess is the best way to describe them. Like, glass on either side, and then on the sides, I guess. Or, yeah, glass in the front and back, and on the sides, I guess. So there were 2 little, I think they were called, like, golden lion tamarins or something. Don't quote me on that. So, and then there was a little armadillo. And so this is the first thing where I was like, that's not normal. The armadillo was just running back and forth and back and forth. And it was like, that's a bit neurotic. Which, if you don't know, that's what animals in like circuses and stuff do, where they just pace and circle, and because they've literally lost their minds. And so then, besides that, the monkeys that were in there were actually like you could tell, like, I mean, no, a normal person looking at this, like, who doesn't understand animal behavior would look at this and be like, oh, you know, they're just looking at us, it's cute, blah, blah. But it's like, you could tell that, like, because he was opening his mouth and he was, like, you know, yelling at us, basically. And it was like, he's being territorial. Like, he doesn't want us here. And I don't know if it was male or female, but, you know, there were two of them. But it was like, they don't want us here. They're being territorial and they're scared. So it was like, yeah, that was a bit. So we moved on. Fennec Fox has more monkeys. A sloth who was sleeping, which I don't know if you can really neglect a sloth, but I'm sure you can. I'm not, like, don't take that seriously. I'm just joking. Anyway, so, you know, there were some degus, which are basically little gerbils, which again, like, I think it's pretty easy probably to give them the mental stimulation they need, because they probably don't need a lot, and they don't need a ton of space, I'm sure. But, you know, or it's easier to give them the space that they need. Anyway, so next to those, though, and there's where I was, like, I was just so mad. There were these two sand cats. So I don't know if sand cats are social or not. I really don't know anything about sand cats. But they had each one in a different little block. And so basically it was maybe like 5 or 6 foot by 5 or 6 foot. And both cats just pacing, circling frantically. Like, they were completely neurotic. They were just the same circle, figure eight, whatever. They just kept going and going and going. And it was like, there was nothing okay about that. I was like, I saw that and I just was like, this is what circus animals do. You know, like animals that are locked in cages and literally lose their minds. This is what they do. They just circle and I don't know. That just really upset me because it's like, you know, this place is supposed to be all about conservation and protecting animals and whatever, which, I mean, it's a zoo. What do you expect? But it's like, just the fact that they had these neurotic animals there and that it was like, you know, nobody saw anything wrong with it, obviously, because nobody cares. Or nobody thinks, like, hey, maybe these animals aren't happy, you know? Maybe they shouldn't be in a zoo. But, yeah. So nobody saw anything wrong with it. And I guess the zoo director, or the people working there at the zoo didn't see anything wrong either. Because, you know, they didn't do anything about it. And, you know, this isn't something that, like, just happens overnight. You know? It's not like all of a sudden you just have these two animals just suddenly lost their fucking minds. Like, no. That doesn't happen. I'm sure they've been doing this for a long time. Like, maybe as long as they've been in the zoo. Or... Anyway. Went on through the small mammal house. Nothing else really stood out. Left that. Started walking down. You know, there's a hill. So we went next to the tigers and lions. And so the first tiger we saw, I think it was a Bengal tiger. Might have been a Siberian tiger, I'm not sure. Anyway. He was, they have like this little, like, 10 or 11 foot maybe, like, path, river sort of thing. Not river, but you know what I mean, like a little curves around the outside, like, right, if you look straight down, there's the water and everything. So, this tiger was just, like, he just, like, paced back and forth in his water. And at first it was like, oh, you know, he's playing in the water or whatever. And then I actually started thinking about it. He had a weird expression on his face, and I was like, that doesn't seem normal. Like, you know, he wasn't, like, playing. He was just pacing back and forth in the water. Which was like, okay, maybe he's a bit neurotic. So, next tiger we saw, sleeping. Then the lions. And, so I don't know how to explain this, really. There was, like, maybe 6 or 7 female lions. I didn't see a male. Maybe there was a male. Maybe there wasn't. Maybe they don't have a male. I don't know. But, so there was, like, 6 or 7 lionesses. And, so the area they had them in was basically, like, a bunch of fake rocks, like, stacked up, like a mountain, I guess, sort of. And, so, basically, there was no room for them. Like, the way I saw it, like, they couldn't run or play if they wanted to. All they can do is sleep. Like, you know, there's no room for them to do anything but sleep. And I know cats sleep a lot, but they're still cats and they still need to play. They're still wild animals. they need stimulation and shit. And like they had like a big rubber ball or whatever in the water for the lions. Like lions don't even like water. But yeah, it was like if a lioness were to start at one end of where the thing started and go around it, she could probably get it in like 11 or 12 strides. And that's the size of it. And then it went up. But it's like, I mean, lions don't even live on mountains. They live on plains. Like, they don't even live on hills and shit, like with rocky hills. Like, I mean, who designed this? Yeah, so anyway. The rest of I mentioned the elephants, the indoor part. So the rest of it was pretty small. I mean, for an elephant, especially. But it was like, they had a big pond, or they had 2 different areas for the elephants. And there was like a big pool of water, which, like, I mean, the elephant was probably bigger than the pool of water, let's be honest. And it's like, it was just sand. And it was like, I mean, maybe you could fit like 2 elephants in there, but that's pushing it. And it's like, I think they had 6 or something. And it was like, no, they don't fit in there. Later on, we saw them, like, we went on a bridge that went over their thing, but it was like, and I'm not sure if this was like, what type of behavior this was, or if they were just like, it was feeding time, or they just wanted to go in or something, but like, 3 that were out, were just standing at the gate, like, just their heads all at the gate, not move, like, barely moving and stuff, And it was like, so I don't know if they were just waiting to go in, or if it was feeding time or something, but that just doesn't seem normal to me, that they were all just standing at the gate waiting, instead of, like, walking around or something. And I know elephants aren't, like, athletic, per se, but it's, I don't know, it doesn't seem like normal elephant behavior. So another thing was the bears, spectacled bears. So basically, they were in this, it's like a slant. It was on a hill, basically. And they had like a big ditch so that, like you wouldn't want to try to climb over, I guess. But again, it was probably like 10 by 10, about, maybe a little bit bigger. And it was like one tree and a bit of grass and some rocks. And that was about it. And it was like, and then we had this woman there who, like, I don't know what she was doing there. She works there. I don't know why she was there. And there was no one at any other exhibits, but she was talking about how, like, they've been so successful with the breeding pair, and how they've had this and that, and how they're helping people in South America breed them. And so it's like, and how they give them mental stimulation. Some days they put this out there, and some days they put that out there. It's like, why don't you give them mental stimulation every day? Like, really? You're gonna tell me, like, oh no, some days we give them mental stimulation. It's like, yeah, that's weird. We moved on from that. I'm not really gonna get into that because I didn't really see that much wrong with it, just other than size. So let me think. Moving on. So we went and saw the pandas. Well, I mean, if you can call it saw, because we saw them for like 2 seconds because of everybody crowding around, but they were in pretty small enclosures too. And so I don't know why they do this, but they only let the pandas out in the morning to the afternoon, which, I mean, I don't know why they would do that. It seems weird. It doesn't seem right. They're wild animals. They should be allowed to go in and out as they please, but they put them inside in the afternoon. So anyway, and then reptiles, reptiles just have it bad. Like, everywhere you go, like, they just don't have enough room. People just cram them into little tiny terrariums. Like, there's, like, especially boa constrictors and anacondas and stuff. Like, you got, like, this, like, 6-foot snake, 7-foot, I don't know, just in this tiny little tank with a tiny little pool. It's like, I don't know. I don't like it. Yeah. So I might have to make this into 2 parts, actually.